Corey Getz. I'm with UHQ Construction, and today we've brought back Laura Rashi with Safe Families for Children. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's been a year, but just wanted to come back and talk about how things are going. Like I said, Laura works with Safe Families for Children. So if you want to just tell people who you are, what your role is, and just remind everybody what, Safe Families does, maybe the mission or the purpose of the organization.
Okay, perfect. So I serve as the chapter director for Safe Families for Children, Central Indiana. Our primary mission is to prevent kids from unnecessarily going to the foster care system. So we know foster care exists for a reason. We also believe that a lot of families that end up there don't need to be there. If they had support and, love from their community, we could stop that from happening, because we also know once children go to the foster care system, it's a lot harder for them to come home.
Yeah.
So we do this by building community for those people who don't have it. And so with our volunteer base, which is extraordinary, we wrap around families who may not otherwise have that kind of support and just walk alongside them in whatever life challenges that they're facing so they don't feel alone.
That's awesome. It's great. And if you don't know, or you want to know more about Safe Families, we did do a podcast previously. You can check out the Central Indiana website as well, if you want to know more. We did a podcast about a year ago, talked a little more about Safe Families, and, so it's a year later. Things have changed a little bit, or a lot since then. How have things changed for Safe Families?
Yeah, I think things have changed with us according to how the world has been changing and how we treat and support families in general. And so I would say it's been a wild year, but also a really cool opportunity to be able to see the amount of people who are willing to step up and step in for families that need extra support. So also learning a lot about just going with the flow, right? And kind of like learning how to okay, so that's what that's going to look like now. Pivot, how do we now step in different ways than maybe we thought about previously? So
yeah, that's great. That's great. So, as we shoot this podcast, it's December 25, and, there's been a lot of changes, when we look at the economic climate, right? Inflation, housing costs, childcare expenses. How's this affected, the people that you serve in Safe Families?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact that our families are feeling come from the child care vouchers. It's called CCDF funds, which stands for Child Care Development Funds. And a lot of families rely on those to help meet the cost of daycare. Daycare is no joke how expensive it is.
I think everybody knows that, right?
Yes.
Daycare costs, it's crazy how much they charge.
It is crazy.
I'm sure they charge it for a reason, but the cost of it is high.
It would be really nice if that money actually went to the employees instead of running a center, right?
Yeah.
I have a friend not in Safe Families who shared that she has a child who's 5 and a newborn, and she pays $586 a week for childcare. And I don't know how a 2-person income household does that. I don't know how a single parent household does that. And so now with these childcare funds being taken away, there will be no new vouchers issued until 2027. And that's up for debate, as to what that will really look like. But that means any parent who is currently pregnant is not going to be able to get the vouchers to help with daycare expense until at least 2027. So we want people to work, but then we're not supporting them in that way that allows them to do that. Because if you're making $15, $16 an hour, you're not able to pay even $100 a week, much less $200 or $300 a week for your newborn. So that's probably the biggest impact within Safe Families, because we previously have been very big about saying we are not childcare, we are not ongoing childcare, we are not babysitters, right? Because we would not be able to answer all the phone calls that came in for that need. So we've always tried to be very short term and very specific about what that looks like but we have had to reevaluate and kind of pivot on our expectations too, because they can't get the CCDF funds. Previously it was like, we can help until you get those vouchers, but there are no vouchers to get now. So we have to kind of rethink what that looks like and how we support.
Yeah. Cause just quick math in my head, and don't fact check me on this, cause I'm probably just doing it wrong. But $15 an hour, generally when we look at $15 an hour, that's about $30,000 a year. And if it's $580 a week, 52 weeks in a year, that's around $30,000 as well. So yeah, it's like, how do you put your whole paycheck towards your child care? That's tough. What have you thought, what are the ideas that's going on in Safe Families to kind of help support that need there?
So we've seen a huge uptick in our volunteers who are willing to step into more of that daytime childcare piece. We also get creative and maybe ask 2 or 3 different families to support one family. Just that way, maybe I'm doing every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe you're doing every Tuesday, Thursday, to kind of help alleviate what that looks like for everybody involved, right? Because this is no longer like a 2-week process. This could be several weeks. It could maybe even be several months.
Yeah.
And then we don't have anything formal in place yet, but we do have different community partners or people who have reached out about how they might be able to assist. We have a church group in Hendricks County that is looking at some funds that they have, and they would like to see that go to help parents with childcare. And so we're looking at how we could collaborate. They could feel good knowing that it was going to the right, people and places, and we can work with hopefully daycares on, hey, can we pay you directly? That's for this family. What does this look like? So it'll be interesting heading into 2026 when all this is like officially halting for people, to see how creative we can really get. But luckily the input that we're getting from the community is that they want to help. Like, they do understand what a burden this is going to be for families.
That's great. Yeah. So quick, I wasn't going to say this right now, but, if you are an organization or a church or you want to volunteer.
Yes.
It's a good time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Cause we do a lot of work. We support a lot of families here, which is great, but we're going to need more help as things move forward, because things are being taken away from those families that we serve. So what was already a dire circumstance is just going to progressively get worse. So need more volunteers.
And for people that don't understand or don't know much about Safe Families, when they get a call, it's like at any hour, it's like, I need help and I need help quickly. Yeah. Right. So, anybody who wants to help, more help, the better. Yeah. Volunteers, if you want to volunteer, it's always helpful. So we talked a little bit about the tax, child tax care credits and things like that. What changes in the legislative side of things would be helpful for you? What kind of things would help what you're doing or not hinder you so much? Yeah.
I think I purposely try to stay a little bit out of legislative things. But I think, what we're seeing is that a lot of benefits that the majority of the families that we serve receive are being cut, either scaled back, done away with completely, whatever that looks like. And when you think about the fact that we're already serving families who are on some sort of a brink, when you're removing yet another thing, you're making it that much harder for them to be successful. And I know we talked about this a lot in our first podcast, but I got to say it again, like, the parents that we work with are some of the hardest working people that I have ever met in my life. Yeah. They are not lazy. They are not sitting at home looking for a handout, but they are trying to realistically figure out how to provide for their family. And you can't do that on $15 an hour. Like, you just can't, especially if you're raising multiple kids on that dollar amount. And so I think when it comes to the child care vouchers or the SNAP benefits or the TANF that a lot of our families receive. I would just like to remind people who aren't familiar in this space to know that these are not people just sitting back eating popcorn during the day. Like, they're legitimately putting wheels in motion
Yeah.
to do better and to provide better. So when we take those things away, it makes it really hard. And I know we're going to touch on mental health too, but this all runs together, right? Like, it's one big cycle. They're all related. And when you start messing around with one of those pieces, it unfortunately affects the whole thing. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Which we'll jump to that SNAP one. There's this one big beautiful bill act, and in it there's new work requirements for people to receive these SNAP benefits. How's that affecting or going to affect the people that you work with?
yeah, I will say, from where I sit today, our families do work, and I think that they will fulfill those requirements regardless. I think what's hard is when they don't know what's coming, right? So when there was all this discussion about the SNAP funding not being provided, the anxiety and the stress that caused for our families and for us, like, oh geez, how are we now going to step in and fill this? It just adds so much to people who are already trying so hard to keep things together. And so my hope is that whatever SNAP looks like, as we move into the future, that it's continuous, that it just makes sense, that people know what to expect and they know what they have to do to get it, instead of the maybe it's there, maybe it's not, oh, it's coming again, but now you're only getting half. Like, it's just toying with a lot of emotions. And I think that's really hard on parents who are already on the brink. So,
Yeah. And did that show through, like, during the government shutdown when, people weren't getting benefits? I mean, did you see the effects? I mean, what did that look like? How did the government shutdown affect the people that you work with?
yeah, I think for me personally, it was actually very amazing to see how many people and organizations were stepping up to fill the gap. That was incredible, because I will be honest and say, I don't think any of our families were directly impacted in a negative sense, because there were so many people that were stepping up and saying, hey, come get this now, or we're not going to have this requirement for the food pantry right now. Just come get food, because sometimes there is a requirement. You have to live in this zip code. You have to, and I get that. They have to have their pieces in place too to be successful with what they're doing. But it was very heartwarming to see the amount of people that were like, you know what, the wheels are off. Just come get food. We'll provide your Thanksgiving, like we talked. We didn't actually provide Thanksgiving meals to any families this year because they were able to get them from other places and agencies. So that part of it was good. And I guess also, luckily, most of our parents don't work at places that were affected by the shutdown either. So they were still busy and they were still able to provide.
That's great. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. We touched on it just a minute ago, but the housing market's changing a lot. From our side, we see it as, for a long time, it's been this like seller's market. There's definitely a shortage in affordable housing, and rents are going up because, traditionally in the past, you would have the younger generations, maybe the millennial generation, well, it goes further than that. The boomers downsize, the millennials are moving up. And so then, there becomes these other houses available. Well, we call it the golden handcuffs right now, where a large percentage of the population has a 4% interest rate or lower, which is locking people to stay into their homes. They're not moving. So these older homes or lower cost homes are not becoming available. We've got, large corporations buying up these lower cost houses to become rentals. There's areas like Carmel that's limiting the number of rentals that are even possible. But, how is this affecting the people that you work with that need to rent a house? Because I don't think a lot of them are probably buying houses. They're more in that rental situation. But, right now rental rates have gone up tremendously in the last few
Yeah.
years.
It's crazy when I look at what is being charged, even for like a one bedroom apartment that is maybe also not a great apartment. Like you walk in and you know that all these things need to be fixed and done. And it's, I shared with you earlier, like I had someone tell me that we don't have a lack of housing. And I said, okay, but can we add the word affordable in front of it? Because we can't. Who is renting these bougie apartments for like $2,000 a month? It's not the people that are making minimum wage or, doing the work that somebody needs to do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that is always going to be our greatest hurdle within safe families. Some of the families that we work with maybe don't have the best credit, or they're trying to build their credit.
Yeah.
And so then they're not getting approved for all these new renovated places as well. And it just makes it really difficult on knowing how to help them, how to figure out where, they should go. And that is a big piece of why a lot of our families couch surf, and they couch surf for a long time. And it's why we get involved hosting the kids, because the simple reality is it's easier for mom or dad to couch surf without 3 kids in tow. You can find friends or other family members who are willing to let you stay. That's not ideal. None of us want to do that. And none of us want to wake up in the morning and the first thing that hits our brain is, where are we going to sleep tonight? Or where is my kid going to sleep tonight? Like, that's a terrible way to have to live each day. And so that housing piece is just always going to be there. It's always going to be there. And I have big dreams, right? Like, if Jesus just trusts me with money, I got some big plans about, how to provide for families and not always more shelters, right? Like, they deserve dignity and they deserve a space that's theirs. But it has to be affordable as well.
Yeah. Because I think that touches on a point that we've talked about in the past is homelessness doesn't look like what people may think of homelessness as, right? Like, some people think of homelessness as somebody living on the street, begging at the stoplight type of thing. But in all reality, that's not necessarily the homelessness that you're seeing, right? Like, it may be more like couch surfing. And, could you touch on that for a minute, on like what homelessness maybe looks like from the safe families side of things?
Yeah. And I think a good way to look at it when you're not always in this world is like, not to sound super formal, but like, do they have a permanent residence? Do they even have a temporary residence? A lot of families we serve do not have a permanent residence and may or may not associate with their address or where they're currently staying as even being temporary, because they may also not know day to day if they're going to be allowed to stay with that friend or that neighbor or that coworker again. And so I think, I think the politically correct term now that we're supposed to use is the unhoused. And I like that, because I think it does make your brain, like, we're not saying they don't have a place to sleep tonight, but they are unhoused, because there's not a permanency to that. And so I think really that's what we're looking for, right? Is how do we get people in a position? How does maybe our city help people get in a position to where this housing is available? And because again, they're not afraid to work for it. They're not afraid to earn it, but it needs to be available. And right now that's not really there. But you're right. It looks very different. Now, we do have parents that will call and say, we're going to have to sleep in our car tonight. I don't have any other choice. Those are, of course, the calls that we react to immediately, because you can't sleep in your car with your kids. And we don't like moms or dads to sleep in their car either. So for us, it's like, let's get your kids somewhere safe tonight. But then also, where are we going to get you? Like, we're not just going to leave you hanging either, right? Yeah. So it's that whole picture view of how do we get this family somewhere safe? Can they go to a family shelter together? Probably not space. Okay, if we host kiddos, if we take kiddos into a volunteer home and they have a safe place to sleep, could mom and or dad then go to one of the overflow shelters so they at least also don't have to sleep in a car? So it's the brain is always moving. How do we meet the need? How do we meet it in the best way for the family? What does that look like? We don't, within hosting and safe families, we don't normally host the family, so we can take care of kids. So then again, it is just that piece of helping mom or dad figure out where they're going to go to. So.
Yeah, which is a part of what Safe Families does, right? It's not just, hey, we're going to watch your children for you. We're also going to give you some assistance and like, here's a roadmap of kind of where you need to go and get yourself on your feet, because the goal of Safe Families is not to like take the children and then care for them long term. It's let's get you back together as soon as possible, right?
Yes. And we also believe very strongly that you have to be willing to love the parents and the children. You can't love children well if you're not willing to love mom or dad as well, and so it really is. It's not a matter of like, okay, great, kid's not sleeping in the car, bye, talk to you tomorrow. Like I don't want anyone sleeping in a car, so it's just talking through those pieces. But being willing to love mom and dad for who they are too.
Which, I mean, can be a challenge, right? And this kind of leads us into that next part that we're going to talk about today, which is the mental health and, substance abuse side of things, which, we're seeing very high amounts of mental health issues. And, when it comes to that, like, what are you seeing from that standpoint, as far as like mental health challenges for the parents?
I would say the mental health, we have our reasons for referral, right? Where we ask a parent, like, what's the reason for your call? And so we try to track those reasons. So we kind of have an idea of what's happening in our community too. That mental health piece is definitely on the rise. I've been on staff with this chapter for a little over 7 years. When I first started 7 years ago, you hardly ever heard mental health as being mentioned.
Really?
It was probably there, but it wasn't mentioned. I don't think it was acknowledged in the way that I feel like.
And there's like there used to be a stigma behind it too,
100%.
right? Before like Simone Biles came out, like a lot of athletes have come out and been like, okay, mental health is more important. I feel like it's in the last 7 years, it's probably become more acceptable to talk about.
Yes,
right?
I would agree with that. Of course, we still have a long way to go, right? But it's definitely better than it was 7 years ago. And a reason for a mental health crisis or referral call can look very different, because it could be a mom who's maybe alone and is like, I'm struggling with my mental health. Like, I need a break and I need a breather and I need to like get some sleep tonight and regroup.
Yeah.
Or it could be a mom who says, I have a therapist. I am on medication. My medication is not working and I have to get it adjusted. And I can't do that safely when I have kids at home. Yeah. So the reasoning can look very different. We try to normalize mental health all the time. I mean, we validate it because we do, as a team, also know that it is a huge issue. Nobody should be ashamed about it. Yeah. And we do need to talk about it. And you do need to feel like you have a safe space to go talk to your doctor and not take your 3 children with you while you're trying to talk about nothing productive is going to come from that appointment, right? Like Absolutely. To give them their space to kind of do that. And then on the flip side, we also know that for most parents, it's also not in the best interest of their mental health to have their kids gone for a long period of time either. And so it's finding that right balance. And that comes through conversation with the parent. What looks best for you? What would your perfect scenario be? And then let's see how close we can get to that, right? Because we do have a lot of parents that are like, I don't want my kids spending the night somewhere else. Okay, can we come get them for a couple hours on a Saturday and give you a breather? They can go play with a volunteer family and their kids, at the park or whatever, and just give them that space to kind of regroup.
And how many times, like when you give them that little break, are they like, oh, okay, maybe this wasn't as scary as I thought. Maybe I can get a little bit more help from you.
100%, yes. Yeah. And I think that's what's so cool about what we do, because it can start out that way and it can just develop into so much more, right? Because they learn to trust. They learn that they can trust these volunteers. And then the next thing you know, they're all going out to eat for dinner together or whatever. And then it might build up to a point where the volunteer is saying, hey, we would love to have Laura come spend the night with us this weekend. Like, are you okay with that? And it's not even the parent that has to ask for it all the time. Like, it's a genuine relationship that's building.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, when I think about some of my friends that have kids, and sometimes like a date night just for the two adults, it's like, this is a great break from our kids. Like, and you can only imagine like somebody dealing with like mental health issues, single family home, like that's a challenge just to get that like time to yourself, which I think we all need.
Yeah.
Right. Like we all need a chance to be able to breathe.
Yes.
And have a break.
Yeah. And sleep. I'm like the biggest proponent of sleep. And I'm like, if you have a parent who's not sleeping well because their kids aren't sleeping well, because they don't know where they're sleeping the next night, like everything starts to spiral then.
Yeah.
And I shared previously, like I'm a single parent, and I remember how mad I was when I first had to, send my kids to their dad's house. But looking back on those years, I would have never survived without that. I didn't enjoy the moments at the time, but I also see how they poured into me and how I was able to kind of regroup during that night where they went to their dad's house. But a lot of our parents also don't have that as a possibility because the other parent maybe isn't involved by choice or otherwise. And so it's just like, this is normal people stuff. Like we do need to regroup, and we might pay for babysitters. Other families aren't able to pay for babysitters. How do we help pour into them and help them refill their cup?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a tough situation.
Yeah.
I know a friend of mine who his wife recently had some mental health issues, and they have a newborn, and he's like, now when she comes back home, how do we deal with this situation? Because I got to go to work and we got to make sure everybody's good, and it's just that much harder. Somebody's single family dealing with that, doesn't have the family support. And that's where Safe Families comes in, right? Is Safe Family can be that gap for, hey, we can be here for you when you are in a time of need. And I think that's great.
Yeah. And I will just give a little plug. I use the word moms a lot because the majority of families that we serve are single parent mom household.
Yeah.
But we do serve dads. And we have also served married couples or couples who are together. And so I would want people to know that our volunteers maybe aren't going to host for a date night, but like that they would, we also know that 2-parent households also have struggles, right? Like you even sharing that about your friend, like if you have a mom and dad household and someone struggling with mental health, but the other partner also has to go to work and now you've got a newborn baby in the picture, like that's a perfect example of where Safe Families can still step in. And maybe you don't need that overnight hosting, but maybe a family friend can come over and sit with mom during the day or take the baby for an hour or two so mom can get some sleep. So just wanted to put that out there because I do say moms all the time because it's just what comes out of my mouth.
And that's a great example. And I getting to know your organization, it's like, a lot of who you serve is going to be women, but there's other people, and that's great to kind of share with everybody that is watching. So that's really good. That's great. What challenges do your volunteers face when they are encountering people with mental health issues? And, maybe it's that first meeting with them, or, maybe you've had multiple meetings and, they're dealing with somebody with mental health issues. What does that look like for your volunteers?
Yeah, I think I'll back it up a step. So when we approve our volunteers, there's an assessment piece that comes along with it, which is, for lack of a better description, like an interview process, right? Where like staff sits down with the volunteer and asks a bunch of questions and just tries to get to know you on a deeper level and like your motive behind wanting to get involved. But part of what we also discussed during that time is maybe some things that have happened in your own life, maybe some personal traumas that you've had, things like that. So I'm sharing all that to say we try to really be cognizant of like, if we have a mom who is facing some specific mental health crisis or substance use crisis, and we also know that could potentially be a trigger for this volunteer family over here, that's probably not going to be our perfect match in that situation, right?
Yeah.
So we try to pay attention and we try to divulge enough information where a volunteer can kind of assess like, hey, I think I'm comfortable stepping into that or not.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said it's not hard on a volunteer, right? To watch a parent struggle and to have a little worry in your heart about what that looks like when kiddo goes home or when baby goes home. But man, I love our volunteers so much. And I just feel like they show up in ways that like it blows my mind every day. Just the way they step in, they're not afraid to acknowledge hard situations or conversations. And they're not afraid to like normalize it for the parents who are going through it. And it's actually really interesting what we may end up learning even more about our volunteers during a match like that, because they get more comfortable sharing about, you know, maybe something that they went through. And again, not in a comparison kind of way, but just in a way to share with the parent, like, I hear you, you know, you're not alone. You're not the only person this has happened to. And then, you know, we've talked before about different roles in safe families, but that family coach is there to really help have those conversations with the volunteer and with the biological parent to make sure that everything is going okay and make sure no one's feeling overwhelmed or like uncomfortable about a specific reason that we may need to address or talk through.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. Yeah, and I will say, you know, I've been through the volunteer vetting process, and it's a very good process. I really liked it. It's very thorough, and you know, it gives me confidence. You know, I love the safe family saying. I mean, after going through that process, it was like you are making sure that like the people that are going to encounter the people that you serve are going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a really awesome piece about safe families where it's like your volunteers, like I got to come to I forget what you call it, the night with the stars.
Uh-huh.
Amazing. That
Thank
was
you.
such a great event to come to. I had one of my colleagues come with, and we still talk about it all the time where it was like, remember that night? And that was so much fun. And everybody was so great. It was really cool to meet some of the other volunteers, and you know, it's a great organization.
Thank you.
You work very hard. I mean, that's
We
just
do.
incredible what you
know,
built.
These parents are trusting us with their most prized possessions. Like that is not
At the toughest times,
Right.
usually, right?
Right. And I don't know what that feels like because I was fortunate to have parents that I could call and that were retired and willing and able to step in and help me, you know, but I also really recognize that not everybody has that. And so I know that's part of my personal driving force on why like our volunteers are good people. Like we are going to make sure of that, or they're not going to be our volunteers because you can't mess around with this. Like these are families, these are kids, and you just need to know that people are in it and going to support parents. And it's also okay to like model behavior and give suggestions, but just not to think that you can do it better, right? Like to acknowledge parents where they are. So yeah.
That's great. How does, you know, as we've talked about, mental health is obviously a challenge that you deal with, you know, how does safe families collaborate with like, you know, mental health professionals or organizations to help those people in need get help?
Yeah, it's definitely a two-way street, right? We do have some of those providers, agencies or independent providers who refer people to us because as they are working with an individual through, you know, their mental health coping plan, whatever that looks like, they might identify like, yowza, like they need a break. They need a couple hours where they can really pour into themselves, or they really want to be a part of this group, right? Like this therapy group or whatever, but can't bring your 3 kids to it. And so how can we step in and help? And then vice versa, as we build those relationships, then when we have a mom who's struggling and maybe doesn't have her own provider yet, then we can refer her to those people because we know that they are meeting families where they are and trying to help them build that big picture of what this looks like moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine you're just continuing to see that network grow over
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah, it's been really great. And we have Trisha here with us today, and she does our community engagement. And that's a large part of what she does is, meeting with those offices, those providers, sharing about what we can give and how we can help support. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Shout out to her. She's great. She's the one who got me involved.
Yes.
We
Thank
did
God
some-
she
did
needed
some
work
work
done.
with her, and she's like, "Hey, so you said you like to be involved with the community?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we used to help people adopt dogs. I'm a big pet guy, but I kind of like this one a little bit better. This help working with you. So cool. So what's some good news? What are some good news that's been going on with safe families? I think you talked a little bit ago prior to us coming on, about this Title 4E. Maybe you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, just a quick snippet of back history. Safe Families nationally started in 2003. This chapter started in 2008. This year, there's this whole process. You go through this California clearinghouse, you get identified as an evidence-based program, which we did, which means we can confidently say that we stop kids from unnecessarily going to the foster care system, putting a huge emphasis on that word unnecessarily, right?
Yeah.
And so that was big when we were able to finally say that we were evidence-based. It doesn't mean a lot to us in the way that
You kind of knew it was
we
happening,
already knew
right?
what was happening, but it validates us for people that maybe don't understand this process and that maybe go, wait, what? You have volunteers who step into this? Because again, our volunteers are volunteers. They do not get a stipend.
Oh, when I first heard about
doing
this, I was like, you guys are doing what now? Like, okay, all right, I'm
Yeah.
interested. This is cool.
Yes.
But and seeing it now, it's like,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
So it was very validating for the people who needed the validation, right? Like, okay, they're legit doing this stuff. And so then we go through this whole families first process. Anyway, we just recently got approved where Safe Families is eligible for Title 4E funding. Now, what does that mean? Not really sure yet, right? There is not currently any funding available for me to even ask for it. But the Title 4E funding, for people who don't know, and I'm just reading this because I wanted to be accurate in my words, but it provides federal funds to states for foster care, adoption assistance, and child welfare services. And so the main goal is to help vulnerable children and families by covering costs for placements, adoption, subsidies, and workforce training, yada, yada, yada. It's just another piece of they're validating the work that we do. They are recognizing us as being a prevention service when it comes to child welfare. So that alone is a big win for me. I don't know what that will or will not mean financially speaking moving forward. Because, there is this piece where most funding for agencies like ours is being removed, not being added. So I don't know that the dollars will ever make sense, but I do appreciate that we're being recognized for the work that we do and that it's valid and that other people can see that and identify that. And hopefully that also resonates with parents that, because sometimes that's scary for them too. Like, wait, what are you doing? Who are these people? Who's going to come help take care of my kid? And so I think it does provide a little more of a formal process for those who need or want that. And it was a big win for Safe Families as a whole to just be recognized in that way.
How long did that process take?
Years.
Yeah.
Yeah, years.
That's good.
I've been director since 21, and I'm pretty sure we've been talking about this the entire time that I've been director. So it's a very lengthy process because the people who give you the credentials, right? You have to be legit. They have a certain standard.
Yeah, what did that process
or
look like going
expectation.
through it?
Thankfully, I have no idea because it's all done at the national level.
Okay, good.
So I just kept doing my thing, serving families, but it is based on the number of hostings that you do, what that looks like. We track things in the relationships that we build. We talk a lot about how we're building parents, sustainability and how they learn to be self-sufficient and things like that. follow these things called the protective factors. You can Google them, but it's just about like building social supports, building child development awareness, things like that. So there's a lot of legitimacy that goes into what we do, but then there's also just a lot of like, can you love this family and just walk alongside them?
Yeah, that's great. Any other good news that you want to share with us right now about safe families? I mean, I know you helping a ton of families.
We do. We pull in some really large numbers. We killing it over here as a team of 4. But we couldn't do that without our volunteers. Like, we are so fortunate that that has remained steady over the years. Of course, we always want that to grow because, like we discussed previously, it just depends on who's available. And so there's always going to be a waiting list when it comes to safe families because it needs to be the right fit. We're also not, if a child is terrified of dogs, my house with 3 dogs is probably not the right place for them to go for anyone to feel safe and loved. And so there's a thought process that goes into everything. So the volunteers is definitely something that we need to grow. But I just feel like our chapter it just continues to do what it's doing. And just, I feel like it gets stronger. And I feel like our volunteers step up more and more every day. Like, it's very mind-blowing to me to just watch how they're willing to brainstorm about other ways that they could step in and help. So that's been amazing. So yeah.
That's great. About how many volunteers do you have working with here in Central Indiana?
Yeah. So I could like really sit here and brag and be like, we have like over probably 800 approved volunteers, which is true. But on a yearly basis, we probably have on average about 100 volunteers who are active during that year. So yeah, I mean, it's good though. It'll be exciting to do 2025's numbers. Like, obviously haven't done those yet, but in 2024, we benefited like 200 kids. I mean, we served like 90 families. It's kind of mind blowing what, this little movement can do. So yeah.
And what does a volunteer look like? Like, for somebody, it's like, I don't know if I would fit as a volunteer.
Oh.
I know I felt that way when I was like, I was like, I don't know if I'd be a good fit. Like, what do volunteers look like that work with safe families?
Yeah, you'd fit, right? Like, if your heart is on mission, like, because a big piece of what we do when we talk to you about volunteering too is like, where do you see yourself fitting in, right? I'm not going to convince you to host kids overnight if that is not what you want to do, because that's silly. Why are we making people do that? But, there's so many different levels to what we provide. And then as the world is changing, there's so many more creative ways that we need to think about stepping in with families. So, resource friends give tangible gifts. So maybe they throw gas cards or diapers or whatever a family needs at that time. So we go from that all the way up to hosting kids overnight in your home. But if you don't want kids overnight in your home, we can talk because we got a million different ways for you to step in. Otherwise, and I think that's why I love what we do so much too, because that also changes over time. Like, as your season of life changes, maybe the way you see yourself being involved looks different, and that's okay too. I used to only host. That's all I did. Host, 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 host. Now I'm the family friend. Someone needs a ride somewhere, I'll drive you there. Like, because my house isn't ideal to host in anymore. And so I think that's the really cool piece about it, is that you can fit in how you want to fit in.
If somebody's wanting to volunteer, how would they go about getting connected with you or going through that process to possibly become a volunteer?
Yeah. So if you go to our website, which if you just search Central Indiana Safe Families, you'll find it. But all of our contact info is on there. So you could email any of us or even call the intake line. There is an online application too. If you go to the links at the top, it'd be apply here. The application is fairly simple because we do that assessment piece now where we have more of a conversation instead of asking you all those questions on paper. So the application itself is like 5 minutes or less. And then Trish is now in charge of our volunteer processing. So Trisha would be the first person that they would hear from. And she walks alongside them in that process now and helps make sure they know everything they're supposed to be doing. And it's not a hard process. Yeah.
It's good. What about if you're an organization and you want to help support safe families? How would they get involved?
Call me. Yeah, like, I mean, how do they want to get involved? This is the tricky piece with us. People want to do like 1-day volunteer events with us, and that is just not something we can do because we don't even have an office. We work from the community. So, people are always like, can we come help do whatever? And I'm like, at my kitchen table, that's probably not going to work. And because honestly, a large amount of our families don't have, like, they're always like, can we come do yard work? And I'm like, well, they don't, A, maybe don't want you there doing their yard work, or B, it's not actually their yard. They would have to ask somebody else, so it gets a little tricky. So those volunteer opportunities are hard. But in terms of wanting to support us by, we do 2 huge fundraising events a year. We have Breakathon, which is actually this Saturday, December 6th, which, you know how kids like raise money on like how many, like jump rope for heart, like how much jumping rope they're going to do or how many laps they run.
Yeah.
Breakathon is with a martial arts studio, and it's how many boards that the students will break.
Okay.
And so they raise money. It's really fun. I broke a board. It's awesome.
With your hand?
Uh-huh.
And your hand was good.
Yeah.
That's always my
about her
fear.
experience, but mine was fine. I've done it with my hand. I've done it with my elbow. It's really cool. But we have that. And then we have our Evening with the Stars in June. So anytime somebody wants to, like, if they want to be a part of something bigger like that, helping us plan, helping us organize, that's cool. And of course, if they want to be a financial supporter, then I really would sit down and have a conversation with them. I'm very transparent about where our money comes from and what we spend it on. We run a very thin budget. And, I think people, once they get to know us and see how we do things, they can see that they can trust that their money's being put to good use. So.
Yeah. And is it better for somebody to give a like one-time donation, or is it better for them to sign up on a like monthly basis?
Yeah. So as you know, like our June event really focuses on getting monthly donors, because there is this piece of, sustainability, like month to month. It's not fun, especially in my role, to be like up and down and up and down. And so the monthly donors are really, really important. We also completely understand and respect that some businesses in particular and some individuals who just want to do their year-end giving, or fine with me. It's kind of like being a volunteer. Wherever you want to see yourself fit in is great. And I shared with you too, like after our first podcast, we had a donor come forward and he had his own idea of how he wanted to give. And he wanted to give by blessing the staff every month with a staff lunch. And so we have those conversations and, just talk through what's in their heart. Like, what are they wanting to do and accomplish? But yeah.
All types of different ways.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you.
Thank you
for sitting down with me and talking again. And like we said before, maybe we can do this a little more often. And we love to, whether it's doing this podcast or we talk to a lot of customers about this organization. We love it. I think you do amazing work. You and everybody on the team, Trish. Yeah. And so, thanks for everything you do. I think it's a big help to the community. It's obviously a big help to families. And, I just can't imagine if you weren't there doing it. I mean, who would be, right? So
yeah, thank you. We love being able to do it. I often say, I can't believe this is my job, like that this is what I get to do. It's very rewarding and also gives you some insight on that there are still a lot of good people in this world too. Which is very refreshing when you just see like the volunteers step in and other agencies and stuff. So, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
All right.